Robert, so good to sit with you again.
Thank you.
And enlighten me once again with all of your wisdom. For the people who don't know who you are, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what your speech here at AUREA Leaders was about?
Sure, I'm happy to. I'm Robert Althuis, and the arc of my life was really, I went into business and I went to Ivy League Business School and had a big successful career, all the blah, blah, blah stuff that the world is really excited about. And when I sold most of my business, I really felt very empty and disillusioned, actually. And that was a spontaneous awakening that I had, which at the time I had no idea what that was. And from that it became like this quest, this search, what is life really about? What's the meaning? What's the purpose?
Yeah.
And slowly but surely I went through some trials and tribulations, and I started on this spiritual path. Then I had a big fall from grace. I lost most of what I built. I went through divorce. I lost my father. And those were my gifts wrapped in sandpaper, as I like to call them, because that's when the universe gives us the opportunities to really rise into who we truly are. And I started writing my first book in therapy. That was actually self-therapy, and I published it in 2021, so I'm an author now. My second book is coming out in September, and today, what I spend most of my time on today is working with men, as well as women, but mostly men in places of power and influence, who are on the rite of passage called awakening. And so I help them through that process. I help them become awakened leaders, and then we work on their businesses to make sure their businesses are a force of good as well, because through business we can have an enormous impact on this world. So I also sit on a few boards, I speak, like I said, I write. I'm writing my third book right now. Ooh. And September 12th my second book is coming out, which I'm excited about. So I do a variety of things. I'm a father of 3, that keeps me busy too.
Yeah, amazing. And so let me ask you this, because I have a lot of questions for you, but first and foremost, what is the golden age to you? What does it mean? And also, what are your hopes for the golden age?
Yeah, I think it's quite simple. I mean, I think it's a beautiful name, but I like to say just a more beautiful world for everybody and everything. And when you think about that, it's very self-evident. When we look at the world today and we see war and violence and hate and racism and inequalities and famine and pollution, I mean, this is not a beautiful world, and not for enough people. Right? Yeah. And so when I think about the golden age, if you want to call it that, is how do we create a more beautiful world? Because if you look at the nature and you look at the laws of nature that make nature ever expanding, ever regenerating, ever growing, blossoming, flowering, changing, evolving, those same principles apply to us, because those are the immutable laws of nature. And when you apply those to humanity, we violate quite a few of them. Yeah. And so that's really where most of my work is focused on. But really I like to think about it, just a more beautiful world. And that's going to look a little different for everyone. But still, a more beautiful world for me should not mean an uglier world for you.
Absolutely.
And that's the golden rule, which is in every major wisdom tradition, ancient wisdom tradition, every religion. So, the rules of this game are not that hard to understand. They're they're challenging to live by, authentically, but they're not difficult rules.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a quote that says, "It's simple, but it's not easy."
True. Yeah, I use it all the time.
Yeah. Simple but not easy. So it's the simplicity, and that's been mentioned a lot in a lot of the interviews. Simplicity, simplify. But sometimes we want to, the brain wants to overcomplicate things. So how do you do that?
Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Right?
Yeah, that's good. So for someone who's gone through a reinvention process, you've reinvented yourself, and it looks like you've shifted into a more, conscious way of being an entrepreneur. From that perspective, for anyone who is watching this and is struggling, a lot of us have a story, a lot of us have a backstory of who we used to be, and then we went through some transformation, and then now we've awakened into this new reality, and we want our work, we want to either leave a legacy or do our work or just do our part in this golden age. What advice would you give someone that's struggling with making that shift?
Well, the first thing is, if you're still holding on to stories, right, you are always living in the past. Because everything that your story is something that was some experience that you created a narrative or story around. Because in life, there's what happened, and then there's the story we create around it. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is to let go of all your stories and to say every day is a new canvas. It's a blank canvas. I can paint on this whatever I want, however I want. So what do I want to do today? Yep. Now, the second thing is, and that's something I talked about today, is that there's this beautiful thing that we can look at the world as a hostile world, right? It's against us. We have to struggle. We have to persevere, and we do need to persevere, but that it's hard, that it's difficult. Or we can look at it, well, it's a benevolent world.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually here to help us. The universe has my back. And the reflection of the universe, the reflection of our reality, the setbacks that we have are maybe just things to teach us something. Mm-hmm. And now some of this struggle and some of this, well, I don't know, can maybe transform into, well, it's just giving me information. So if one, avenue is not working, maybe I should do something a little different.
Yeah.
Instead of just keep trying the same thing. If this is not really filling my heart, if I'm not waking up and enough mornings that I'm really like turned on by what I do, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. And a lot of times we get trapped in this story, what we think the world wants us to do, or what our parents want us to do, or what supposedly is hip on Instagram and what everybody else is doing. Yeah. But there is a story of you, in you. There's poetry within you. There's seeds of gifts and superpowers that want to sprout, that want to grow, that want to evolve. And if you can just figure out what that is for you, and it's not that difficult, is what do you love to do? Like, what are you passionate about? I mean, what makes you wake up in the morning? What makes you read a book on a subject that nobody's asking you to read it or study it? You just want to learn, right? Because anything that's in alignment is always going to be more effortless than something that you're doing for the wrong reasons. And so I think the way to kind of narrow down what that might be is, what do I love? What do I do in my spare time? If money was no object, what would I be doing, right? And then, all we have to do is just move in that direction. You don't need to know every single step of how to get there. When you put your GPS on in your car, right, you don't look at that screen where it says all the directions for the next 150 miles with every single turn and every single block. What you're actually doing is you're looking for the next cue, right? Okay, 2 miles from here, I gotta take the right. But you're not looking for the next 5 indicators. And so we can start living life a little bit more like that. And what that does is it brings us in the present. Yep. And it makes us much more receptive to all this information that's coming in. Because then you're going to meet a person and they're going to tell you a little piece of information like, oh my God, I can look over there. Oh, I know a coach over there, or I know a book that you should read, or, this person over there, I have a friend that does this stuff, maybe you should have lunch with them. And this is how the universe guides us. But a lot of times we don't see it because we're so busy trying to figure out, like all the directions, and we don't need to. We just have to kind of come back to here. But it really just starts, follow your bliss, Joseph Campbell used to say. Life is, Joseph Campbell has a beautiful saying, life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Follow your bliss. Your bliss is your North Star. What makes you tick, what makes you get up in the morning, that's your North Star. Start there.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I feel like it's about just taking the next best step, right?
That's all you can do.
Yeah. And I feel like this has also been me in the past, is sometimes you feel like everybody else has it figured out and you need that perfect roadmap. And you have to have it, like you have to know it now before you take action. Because if you don't, you can't see the whole thing, you can't see the full picture, then it's like, well, I'm not going to take a step because you don't think you can see beyond that.
Yeah. And there's something really important that you mentioned there. We compare ourselves.
Exactly.
Right? And first of all, that person that you think is like 10 miles ahead of you, you have no idea what's going on inside of them. You don't know if the happiness you're seeing on their Instagram reel is really their happiness. But besides that, every single person is a unique puzzle piece of the mosaic of humanity. You're here to be you. You're not here to be anybody else, right? And you are perfectly, ideally suited to be you. Nobody can do you. Nobody can do soul like soul. Mm-hmm. You have no competition. You are a monopoly. You have the monopoly on this embodiment called soul in this world.
Yep.
Nobody can do you like, I couldn't do you the way you can do you, but you can't do me the way I can do me. And if you can just trust that this is a flawless design, that this universe, this mosaic, this puzzle piece, every puzzle piece is important, and there's a place for every single one of them. So your job is just to figure out, well, where does my puzzle piece go, right? And how can I make my puzzle piece, you know, as beautiful, the best, as loving, as expansive, you know, how much joy, how much can I play with that? And that's really all you need to do, and stop looking at other people, because, you know, there's always going to be someone ahead, there's going to be someone behind, and we tend to only look at the people ahead.
Sure.
We tend to never look at the people that we left in the dust. So we're fixating on the wrong person, but just fixate on you. And say, you know, I'm walking mine, you know, stay in your lane. Walk your path. Figure out what soul wants to express, right? And then I'll worry about what Robert wants to do.
Absolutely. 100% agree. That's a tough lesson to learn.
Of course.
But
and I still compare, because
yeah.
it's innate. You know, how am I doing? Am I doing well? Am I like, you know?
And I measure.
Yeah, of course.
Against
It's
other
natural.
people. Yeah.
And then we just got to let it go and say, you know, I'm not in competition with that person.
Yep.
I'm in competition. If I'm in competition with anything, it's the best version of me.
Yep.
And how close am I to that? If anything, that's really the only thing you should be competing with. But I wouldn't even say competing. Yeah. I would say, you know, okay, that's where I want to go. Because I see that greatness inside of me. I see that beautiful life for me. I see those experiences that I want to have. So how do I move closer to that? Yeah. That's really all there is to it. And then it can be play. Because you can't screw up. You cannot screw up yourself. It's impossible.
Agreed. Yeah. So, one question, just to switch directions a little bit. What are some of your own practices to be able to stay centered and balance? Some of your, maybe your rituals, wellness, spiritual, all of the above.
Well, first I start by waking up every morning. Because otherwise we're not in the game, right? Because it's the game of life, nothing else. So just waking up, you actually only won that day. But besides that, you know, I wouldn't have what you describe, all these super deep spiritual practices. I do have a variety of them. I mean, I meditate, but I call it more contemplation. I do use mantras a lot to kind of center and anchor myself. I do like to spend time outside, grounding. I have an outside shower. That's my little ritual in the morning. I kind of take my cold shower, and I, you know, at night I go into sauna, and that's kind of my little half-hour meditation. I just reflect. But for the most part, what I really try to focus on is the self-talk. You know, that little voice in the head that usually, you know, sometimes says beautiful things, but a lot of times they're very disturbing. You know, it's a criticaster, right? It's the judge. And so I try to quiet that judge. Now I do read a lot. I have a really expansive interest level. You know, I draw a lot of inspiration out of all the great philosophers and the great ancient wisdom traditions, and so anything like that inspires me, because it just shows me another way to look at life. So I read a lot, and that is kind of, I go in my contemplation creative mode. I think the most important thing, though, is for people to find, you know, what works for you, because we tend to think like, well, you know, I have to do so much yoga and so much meditation and so much this, and I have to have these rituals and wake up at 5 a.m. and you know, I must do this. And well, you got to find what works for you, because I know some people that thrive waking up at 5 a.m. and I rise pretty early, not at 5 a.m., but I'm up pretty early. I like it. But I know other people that, you know, that makes them miserable. Yep. Right? And if that's not for you, then don't do it. Right?
Exactly.
If you're for some reason a night owl, And there's probably statistics on some people are night owls and some people are early birds, right? I do think there's one thing that's really monumental. If you have no exercise, no healthy diet, your body is weak, soft, unhealthy, it is really, really difficult to get clarity, to really center, because your vessel is just not in the condition to do it. And so a lot of times I tell people, well, get healthy first, right? Instead of being so, like I want to, ascend, I want to rise. Well, why don't you start by having mastery at the physical level? So do a little bit more exercise, eating a little bit more conscious and more healthy, take care of the frequency and the vibration in your vessel, because that's going to affect your emotions, that's going to affect your mental clarity, that's going to affect eventually your spiritual world. And then kind of work your way up. So the most dense is your physical, then your emotional, then your mental, and then your spiritual. And so holistic wellness is you work on all these things.
Absolutely. Love that.
And it's not a race either. Right?
Exactly.
You're not competing with anybody. Can you just be better than yesterday? Like that's a good day, right? Because if you, there's this book called Atomic Habits. If you improve 1% a day, I think you're like 360. It's more than 300. You're like, it's crazy. It's like on steroids how much better you are. 1 year later. So what if your goal is a little bit better than yesterday? Now that's very attainable, right? And you string a lot of these days together, like life will really change quite rapidly, actually. It only takes 21 days to form a habit.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. And again, back to simplicity, right? Making it simple and not this hard process of, we're also kind of impatient sometimes with results.
Of course, yeah. And our world is impatient.
It's true.
It used to be when you went, if you were a student of an Indian guru, and still in the traditional wisdom traditions, that was a 10, 15 year, apprenticeship. We want to go to an event for 3 days and be enlightened.
Yeah.
Right? This is not how it works.
Yep.
There's nothing in this world that you can achieve mastery quickly. Nothing. I don't care if you want to learn how to play the guitar. I don't care if it's a profession, if it's motherhood, if it's whatever you do. Like mastery takes time and application and discipline and grit, and actually the spirituality is in that.
Yep.
In having the perseverance, having the discipline, having the grit. If you can do that, if you can do your dishes in a different way, that is spirituality.
Yeah.
It's not about sitting somewhere in your Buddha pins, which is great. I love Buddha pins. Wear them, but it's really like, how can I create mastery? How can I make my life, how can I see my life as a masterpiece? Like I'm an artist, and my life is my masterpiece.
Yes.
Masterpieces take time.
That's so true. Yeah. Wow, that's so powerful. And what would you say, just for the final question, for any other thought leader in this space, anybody else who is thinking of coming, what has been the value you've gotten from being at an event like AUREA Leaders?
Pose the question again. So, from the perspective of what?
Yeah. So, like being here at this type of event, and you were also at the golden party, at the pre-party.
Right.
What has been like the biggest value that you've gotten when you're speaking to someone else who's like, hey, I might want to go and speak and share some of my work with spiritual entrepreneurs and leaders as well?
Right. Well, first of all, I think everybody has something of value to add. So the first thing is to start talking, to start speaking, to start expressing. And that can be on Instagram in a post, or that can be go somewhere to an event, or go find a group, because entrepreneurs have groups, certain industries they get together, or events, or and if you can't find it, arrange it yourself, right? Take that initiative. And I think what you'll find is once you speak more, people can find you.
Yep.
Because a lot of times we're afraid. We say we're not enough. I'm not smart enough yet. I'm not good enough yet. I don't know enough. I can't really do that. No, you're not doing it. You're not good at it because you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And you're not good at it because you're not doing it enough.
Yep.
So you have to actually start doing it. And then the second thing is, don't be afraid. Your unique story has value to someone. And there's every single person, when you're in an event like this, everybody here is a teacher for me.
Yep.
Because they either have feedback on me or they share a story about their personal life, and that I get a little nugget of wisdom. Say, oh my God, I haven't really seen it that way, or I haven't experienced it that way. I think, one of the reasons I'm always really interested, I think the feminine perspective is always really interesting because I don't live that.
Yeah.
It's not my experience. I don't walk through the world like as a woman, so I don't know what that feels like. So I'm always curious that, when I use certain words or the way I express myself, well, maybe that's like, funny or nice or good for me, but maybe it's not received that way. Mm-hmm. And so, just seeking feedback from people that are different than you. And it's not just gender. I mean, I'm talking about anything. Someone in a different profession, in a different walk of life. Because you're going to find that everybody's got an interesting story. I did this, and then I'll stop talking. I was on a ski vacation with my kids, and I did this little game. Mm-hmm. When you're in the ski lift, everybody has their mask on, nobody's talking, and I was like, I told my kids, I said, I kid you not, within 3 questions, every single stranger has something that you can connect with. Mm-hmm. And once you hit that, you're talking. And I would ask a question. Where are you from? What do you do? I mean, just normal questions. And as soon as it's like, oh, you're from there. I've been there. Mm-hmm. Boom, you're talking. And the maximum was 5, by the way. That was the maximum question. Wow. And it was a 6-year-old boy from Miami. And the 5th question is, well, where are you from then? And he lives like, 5 miles from my house. And I was like, I'm from Miami. No, I was talking with a 6-year-old boy. Right? And so don't see other people as strangers, because as much as you want to express yourself and connect and you want to get to know someone, they want that too. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves to be asked, what's your name? Mm-hmm. What makes you tick? What are you interested in? Nobody doesn't like that question. Everybody loves to be seen, heard, and loved.
Absolutely.
It's just that simple. So if you ask someone a question as simple as what's your name, or what do you really like, or tell me something about yourself, now they're seen. And when they speak and you listen, they're heard. Mm-hmm. Which all of that is a form of love. And we all need the same stuff. Seen, heard, loved. It's not difficult. It's simple.
Simplicity. Once again, thank you so much,
thank
Robert.
You.
This
I really
is beautiful.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming and sharing all of this, and hopefully I get to connect with you again within this 3-day event. And
well, you're a busy lady, so I'm home free now. I've done my speech, so
you did your interview.
I'm all good to go. But thank you for everything that you're doing and what you're bringing to the world, and it's always such a pleasure to see you.